Hello and welcome to Apana Cthulhu. Today we are having a very special playtest of Mappa Mundi, and we have George, one of the writers, creators, whatnot, running the show for us. So without further ado, George, take it away.
Alright guys, welcome to Mappa Mundi, an Exploration and Ecology RPG. Today we are going to be playing Root and Branch, which is our pre-written adventure in our pre-release guide. People who are listening at home can find the pre-release guide available for free. There'll be links in the description, no doubt. You can find it at mappamundyrpg.com. And Root and Branch is our pre-written adventure set in the region of Barbecia. So we have four chroniclers here. We have four chroniclers who are recent graduates of the Mappa Mundi Institute, whose job is to set out into the world and encounter, engage with, document and understand the world's monsters, creatures and cultures. And Root and Branch will be their first post-graduation test. Do we want to introduce our characters, please, everyone, one at a time?
Sure. So I am playing Kathy Itter, who is the archivist. More interested in writing down and noting things about the wild creatures.
That sounds like an archivist to me. Who's up next?
Go on then. I am playing Sir Derek, the fixer. I have steady hands, I know what not to eat, and I'm quite resourceful.
And sounding quite a little bit like David Attenborough as well. Who's up next?
Okay, I'll go. I'm playing the diviner character. My name is going to be Lavesh Dingar. That's something a bit different this time. My strength are deduction, but I'm not very good at exploration. So yeah.
Sounds a bit like character. A diviner to me. Thank you very much. Flower, you're the last one up. Who are you?
Flower, I'll be playing Philip. My license is the Guardian, and he will be basically trying to find where they need to go, keep an eye on any creatures we basically need to find, and maybe even find the food we need to find.
Perfect. Sounds exactly like the Guardian's role. So, because I don't have your character sheets in front of me because we're running this online, I will be referring to you all by your actual names, but obviously you refer to yourselves by your characters, if that's fine. And we will get going. We will get started with Root and Branch. Now, this is your first assignment from the Mappa Mundi Institute. You are new chroniclers sent out into the wilds on your first adventure, your first attempt to go and put your training and study into action. You have been dispatched by the Institute to the small village of Gascar. Now, Gascar is 3 days to the east of the capital city of Barbecia. The capital city is named Maltiers. Gascar is a small village on the frontier of the semi-wilds, and has been known for a long time to be a land, as part of a land of inclement and changeable weather. The Mappa Mundi Institute recently received a letter jointly written by the mayor of Gascar, a man named Bastien Hugo, and a woman named Sylvie Perot. And both Bastien and Sylvie, who are respected members of the community of Gascar, have written to the Mappa Mundi Institute requesting the presence of a team of chroniclers because the weather in Gascar over the last 6 months has gone from being inclement to being utterly terrible and actually potentially ruinously devastating to the local agricultural economy. As you make the 3-day trek to Gascar, are equipped with 50 bezants. Now, bezants are the currency in Barbecia. They're also known as bez, colloquially. Each of you have been given a 50 bez and a report from the Mappa Mundi Institute based on the letter sent by Bastien and Sylvie. Now, this report contains the following information. For the last 6 months, the rain that is a regular feature of Gascar has been especially heavy, and the village and its immediate surroundings, which are on the edge of the semi-wilds, are always shrouded in fog. The population of Gascar at the time of the last census was 135, and most residents are farmers struggling to cope with this ever-worsening weather. The local mayor, Bastian Hugo, also serves as the owner of Gascar's only inn, an establishment called the Yawning Mastiff. Bastian has held the position of mayor for the last 14 years, and his father held it before him. Life is slow in such a small town, and Mayor Hugo spends more time maintaining the inn than he does taking care of local politics. Your named contact, named by the Mappa Mundi Institute when you reach Gascar, is Sylvie Perot, who is head of the local House of Fate. Sylvie led the writing of the letter, and it was signed off by Mayor Bastian Hugo, and she is the one that drove the initiative to have you invited to the village. According to her letter, townsfolk have noticed, quote, moving roots and branches in the nearby Azura wood, and public opinion holds that a monster must have moved into the area. So as you travel east, 3 days east, you're obviously prepared for the wet weather, but you're not quite prepared for the lack of visibility that greets you as you approach the small village. As you are walking down a rutted, mud-soaked, puddle-ridden, muddy road, you suddenly, out of the fog, you are greeted by a worn sign that reads "Welcome to Gascar," and just through the haze of the fog in front of you, there is a gentle glow that radiates from the windows of several candle-lit houses. The constant sound of rain landing on thatched roofs permeates the area, and a dog can be heard shaking droplets from its fur further down the road. As you enter the village, you notice that few locals are wandering the streets, and those that are look like hard-working, weary farmers. Gascar, it seems, is clearly the epitome of a sleepy village, but you can't help but wonder what secrets hide beneath this quiet veneer. So as you move into the village, it's very, very clear that this is a tiny little frontier town. Town is even too generous a word for it. The central square that you walk into is open on the southern side. And in front of you is a building that appears to be the Yawning Mastiff. You can tell this because there is a worn painted sign of a sleepy-looking dog yawning on the outside. To your left, there is a large building that looks like it could be a kind of village shop. There's some kind of barrels and farming equipment outside, but they don't look like they've been touched for a number of days. And the building itself looks very quiet. To your right, you see a small house. It would be generous to call it cozy looking, but it's a small house. And on the front of it, you see the insignia of Fate. Now, Fate is the kind of quasi-religion of this world. And you see the symbol of the House of Fate painted on the outside. This must be where Sylvie Perot, your named contact, lives and works. So it is up to you how you want to proceed from here.
Well, I'd prefer to get out of this rain. As refreshing as it is at times, it does get a little bit dreary after a while. What say you, my companions?
Yeah, no, I think we should definitely get out of this rain. It's been pretty much non-stop all the way here. We should seek out the I can't remember their names. I think it's Sylvie Perot.
Yes.
We need to find to get to update us on the circumstances of the area.
I believe she's in the Fate area, the Fate Guild house.
That is indeed her job, profession, involvement.
Best place to start, I suppose.
Yes, that's a. Well, should we follow on to maybe find this House of Fate?
Perhaps we should leave our stuff in the inn first. I don't really want to go tracking all this equipment around town.
That's a very good point. We should make a home base.
Yes, that's home base. Well, I don't think.
Or B&Q.
I'm partial to little, personally. A nice warm drink by the fire would probably be a nice idea. It has been quite a while of travelling after all. What say you, my companions?
Ah, yes.
I say to the pub.
To the bar!
Yes, that sounds delightful.
So then, to the pub our companions, our chroniclers go. Making their way straight ahead, you open the door, the wide swinging heavy door of the yawning mastiff. As you walk in, a wave of warmth rolls out of the door at you. This is evidently a welcoming place, and very clearly, considering the very few, the small amount of people you saw outside, but the largely full tables you see inside, is the social centre of the village of Gascar. Behind the bar, you see a portly-looking man, just shy of 60, with a bushy beard that looks quite frayed, given how healthy the rest of his head of hair looks. Off to the side, you see a young kind of serving boy who's bringing food and drinks in and out from the bar, and an empty table over by the fire. But before you can properly get your bearings, the man behind the bar with a huge booming voice says, "Welcome, travellers. Welcome to the Yawning Mastiff. Please take a seat over there. I'll be with you in just 1 second."
Ah, perfect, good sir, perfect. Come, compatriots, let's go and enjoy a nice spot by the fire.
Make way, make way.
So the town, the residents of the bar, the patrons of the bar, are somewhat surprised to see people who are clearly slightly better dressed than they are. You've come from Maltiers, the capital of Barbecia, and even though you're humble, freshly graduated Mappa Mundi graduates, you are still decked out in the tools of the trade. So as you take your seat, the bar people kind of clear the way in front of you, and just as you've taken your seat and rested in, the man from behind the bar comes over, begins to grab everyone's hand and begins shaking them and says, welcome everyone. My name is Bastien. I am the patron, the owner, of this bar, and I'm also the mayor of the village. I don't recognise you though. Can you who are you? What brings you all the way out here to the edge of the frontier?
Yes, we're just a travelling party of thirsty travellers. We wish to buy drinks and maybe procure one of your rooms if you have one spare.
We are stevedores of things. Goers of places.
I think our compatriot here has forgotten the fact that we are here under business of the
legitimate kind.
Yes.
We think.
The guilds, if I remember correctly.
Of the Mappa Mundi Institute.
Of the Mappa Mundi Institute, that's the one. This old mind of mine.
When Bastien hears that you are Mappa Mundi chroniclers, the man was already, he's a kind of natural publican, very gregarious, evidently a kind of natural politician as well, but suddenly lifts himself up to his full height, grabs all of your hands and begins shaking again and says, "Thank fate you're here, Mappa Mundi chroniclers, come to our small village, and right when we needed you as well. Have you seen Sylvie yet? Did she send you over to me?"
No, not yet. We've been travelling in the rain for an awful long time, good sir. We thought of warming ourselves up to make it a little bit more presentable.
Wessels.
Perhaps, yes, get some food in our bellies. It's been a while.
And maybe we should, rent a room to drop our stuff off. We don't want all our bags to take up space just lying here by our feet.
So he, when you talk about a room, he seems a little bit taken aback. He's a little bit abashed by an issue that he seems to have. Now he says, of course, food and drink, absolutely. You rest by the fire. He clicks his fingers. The serving boy comes running over and he's like, "Boy, bread, meat, cheeses, vegetables, beer by the barrel. Bring everything these good people need." And he says, "Oh, and before you go, run across the square and bring Sylvie over here as well. She'll want to meet these chroniclers." So off the boy runs to carry out his instructions. And Bastien kind of pulls up a chair. He sits down with you and he says, "I am sorry about the room, but as you can see, we're pretty busy at the moment." He's kind of unsure about how much he wants to reveal to you at the moment, but he says, because of this infernal rain, we've called all of the foragers, all of the people that live out closer to the wood. We've called them back in, and I've chosen to put them up at the bar here, up at the inn, because we can't keep control of, we can't keep track of everyone. So all of our rooms are currently taken. And you see him kind of catch himself a little bit, and he says, well, all but one of them are taken, but that man left all of his stuff here, so just in case he comes back, I'm holding it for him.
Can I potentially use one of my interactions to bait him into saying what's on his mind, what's actually going on?
You could. Bait is normally something that's kind of a physical monster kind of thing, but you could absolutely use it. You're going to have to roleplay how you're going to draw him into the trap, though.
Right, okay. So I'd probably be sitting there going, well, I mean, it does seem rather busy. I mean, what is the local news of the area? It seems to be, as you say, a lot more busier than usual, and what's going on exactly?
So he gets a little bit. He's this is a man that you sense is quite on the surface about his feelings. He's not kind of consciously trying to hide anything from you, but equally, you get the sense that he is surrounded by people who look up to him and rely on him, and so he's a little bit more reticent, perhaps, to be as open as he might otherwise be. But he does say, he says, the local news is kind of what you can see around you, and is also the reason we've asked you here. The weather has been getting worse. He says it's always been rainy here. I've lived here all my life. My father was here before me, and his father before him. And Gasgar has always been wet and rainy. Even in the summer, we're plagued by summer rains. But he said even the oldest of us in the village can't remember anything like this before. And he says, when it first started, we carried on as best as we could. We went about daily life as regularly as possible. But he said the last couple of weeks have gotten particularly severe. We had foragers and herbalists who know the Azura Woods, or at least the near Azura Woods like the back of their hands. But even they were beginning to lose their way. And so I made the choice as mayor to call people in and to stop the collections going out into the forest. And then he says, just as he's about to say more, the door opens and in walks a woman, a kind of short, plump woman in her, you'd probably say her mid to late 50s. And Bastian turns around and said, "Oh, Sylvie, you're here, finally. Maybe you can help me with this. These are the Mappa Mundi chroniclers." And Sylvie kind of gives you all a knowing smile, as if she needed to be told who you were. And you see as she kind of sweeps into the room that she's wearing robes emblazoned with the symbol of fate's loom. And she, without ceremony, she nods to the mayor. She sits down and she says, "Thank fate you're here. I've been waiting for you to come." And she turns to the mayor and says, "Bastian, have you told them about the missing yet?" And he kind of stumbles and sputters over himself a little bit, and he's like, "No, I was just about to tell them."
Thus we get to the crux of the issue. How many people have been missing then, Sylvie?
So Sylvie seems to consider your question. When you say the word people, she seems to consider your question somewhat. And she says, "Well, one of them I would hesitate to even call a person, but we'll get on to him afterwards." And you sense a real venom in her voice. She says, 2 of our locals have gone missing. Anais, she says, Anais Bordeaux. She lives in a cottage outside of town, a gifted diviner back in her day, and still someone who I consider to be a sister in Fate's teachings. Anais was well-travelled. She settled in Gasgar 30 or 40 years ago and has been here for a long time, but she has gone missing. And with her, a younger girl, 18 years old she is, Elodie Laval, the daughter of Guillaume, the owner of the village store. Both of them have been seen around the village and on the borders of the wood for some weeks. And both of them on the same day, 4 days ago, went missing. She says that she herself is very worried about Elodie being as young as she is and as inexperienced with the wilds as she is, but is less concerned about Anais being as well-travelled as she is, though she adds that getting into her late 70s, maybe the Azura Woods are not the best place for her. And then you see her kind of steel herself, and her kind of soft and warm demeanour goes hard and flinty. And she says, and then there's him. And she looks over at Bastien, and Bastien kind of looks down at the ground a little bit, almost quite sheepish. And she says, Pierre, and she spits on the ground after she says his name. She says, he turned up a few weeks back, calls himself a big game hunter. And the rage and the anger and the hatred in her voice as she says this lets you know that she, like you, and like the Mappa Mundi Institute, and actually like most of the world as a kind of collective community, recognise that the killing and the hunting of monsters is basically the biggest taboo you could possibly undertake. And then to brag about it is, you know, is much like it's much like having murdered someone and then worn their skin to their funeral. It's the worst thing you can do. And so she spits on the ground again. And Bastien then says, he is the one that I was talking about, the one that left his room. He left a week ago. He hasn't been seen since, but he spent every night he was here asking everyone as many questions as he could about what their experiences of the Azura Wood were. Had they seen anything over the last couple of months that might have caused the change here?
Yeah, that's very interesting there, about the this missing game hunter. He could be maybe linked to something here. Is there by chance we can maybe search some of his stuff?
Bastien and Sylvie look at one another, and Sylvie, you know, Bastien is almost, and this is a strange thing for you to note, that Bastien, who is the mayor of this town, is almost deferring to Sylvie. And bearing in mind that this man, Pierre's room is in his inn, the fact that this kind of deferral maybe seems a little bit strange to outside eyes. But Bastien, kind of receiving Sylvie's assent, says, of course you can, absolutely. You can even store your stuff up there while you're staying here. He skipped out of the room a week ago. He didn't pay off any of his tab. You get a sense that he's quite, angry about this. He didn't pay off his tab at all. But we've left his stuff there just in case he returns. And you get the sense that he's kind of almost hoping that this is a bit of a bargaining chip for him to get the money that he's owed if Pierre should return. But he says, if you go to the top of the stairs, the room at the end of the hallway on the left, that was the one that he was renting. Try not to damage anything when you're in there. But you get the sense that he is, if not quite as forceful as Sylvie was in his disdain for Pierre, that he is at least getting close to it.
Well, it would be certainly a fun irony if his notes helped us track down and help whatever he was hunting.
Was Pierre after any specific creature in the woods?
So Bastien turns around and says, he calls for a man called Philippe, and you see a kind of older man. In fact, you see an old man and a much, much younger man at a table across the bar. Both turn around when the name Philippe is mentioned. Bastien gestures to the table and both men come over. And Bastien says, this here is Philippe the elder and Philippe the younger, grandson and grandfather. Philippe has been here was born years before I have. He's the oldest man in the village. And young Philippe here is one of our best gatherers and so knows the woods very, very well. And he says, chaps, can you share with our chronicler friends here what it was that Pierre was asking of you? And so young Philippe kind of volunteers first, and he says that Pierre was very, very interested in the stories he'd heard of moving roots and branches. He questioned Philippe quite heavily on whether he had seen any changes in the woods beyond the normal seasonal changes. And Philippe himself has said he hadn't seen any. He tells you the same information he told Pierre, which was the woods had seemed normal to him. He had heard, you know, the stories that other people were bringing back to the woods, but put it down to, you know, tricks of the light and different things like this.
One must wonder, Philippe, you've been here for your entire life. You've respected these woods, correct?
Yes, sir. And he kind of nods his head a little bit. This is a man, you get the sense, is deferential to people that he perceives to be in authority over him.
So, I have to wonder, has anyone disrespected the woods of late?
Disrespect, he says. The woods are our lifeline, he says. These are, you know, we grow up in and around them. He said, certainly back in my day, we were, you know, we children would play on the borders of the woods, and as we got older, our parents would take us out into them, gathering and hunting in when necessary. And he said, you know, a lot of the farmers tend to stay away from them, but those of us that work in the gathering trades are in and out of the forest all the time. But he says, no one would disrespect the woods because the woods don't disrespect you. And he talks about them as if they're a living thing.
Well, you see, that's my theory there. Compatriots, I wonder if someone has potentially disturbed the balance, this Pierre coming in and upsetting things.
Oh, I wonder if he didn't kill something that was keeping whatever's causing trouble now in check.
Well, either that, or he's irritated it, and as such it is attacking or defending itself in the way it knows best by these moving trees and such.
Well, I suppose the only way for us to find out is to go explore the woods and see what we can find.
Well, we should go and check his room.
Yes, his room first, of course.
Explore the room, explore the wilderness.
So, with all the chroniclers agreed, Bastien stands up and leads you to the stairs, reminds you of the room up at the top of the stairs, down the end of the corridor, last room on the left. And as you ascend the stairs, the hubbub of the bar quiets behind you. And opening the door to Pierre's room with the key that Bastien has given you, you are greeted by what could only be called a humble room. There's not much in it. There is a bed. There is a desk on the by a small window, and you can see the kind of it's clear that someone has been staying here for some time, but the room is otherwise unoccupied.
Okay, so can I walk up to the desk? Mm-hmm. Are there any papers on the desk? Any sort of I don't know, writing material?
You can see an old, it's not quite a quill, it's not quite a pen, it's a metal-tipped kind of, almost the Mappa Mundi Institute has trained you in basic map making and basic cartography and sketching as well, and you know that these are commonly used surveyor's tools that are sometimes used for etching in wood, but also sometimes used like fountain pens, and there are a couple of ink stains on the desk, as well as some marks appear on the desk as well. Okay,
so this is what I want to do. I'm going to get one of the pieces of paper, and I'm going to assume there's like a pencil or like some lead nearby.
You would be carrying charcoal and things like this with you as a chronicler.
And I want to take a trace of the desk.
You want to put the paper on it and then kind of do a rubbing of it almost.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So as Sam, as your character is doing this, you're trying not to press too heavily on the desk, and you get a sense of a pattern of some sort is emerging, but the pattern is incomplete. Is the way that I would describe it. It's clear that someone has been drawing on something on this desk, and the pressure has gone through. And what you are seeing is almost a palimpsest representation. Now, can you give me, please, a deduction check?
Okay, this is the first roll. So
it is the first roll. Yeah, normally we probably would have had some earlier rolls with this, but you guys have been role playing this very nicely. So well done.
Okay, so yeah, no, I've got deduction of D6 on my character, so I'm assuming just roll 1d6.
Just roll 1d6. That'll be it.
Okay. I got a full 6 on that one.
A full 6. Okay, so the pattern is, while the pattern is incomplete, you get a sense of that you are able to kind of fill in the gaps here. And so you kind of lift the paper up, you look at it in different, from different angles, and you notice that it kind of has an outer circular shape, but that as you start to look at it more and you almost kind of quiet your mind and focus in on this a little bit, and this is one of the things that diviners are able to do is to kind of quiet their mind and listen into the kind of patterns and the traces and the presences that have been that have passed through the world before them. And you start to kind of almost what do they call it? Like ghost write? You know, when people let their hand, they put their hand on a piece of paper and then just let their hand start to write. Yep. In this case, you're drawing. And when you open your eyes, after a few minutes, you open your eyes and you are confronted with a now complete image of a huge circular shape that has a helix pattern. It's kind of a helical spiral that comes out from the inside and kind of rotates around until it meets the outer edge.
Okay. I'm just about following you this one. Yeah, keep going.
So that's the discovery from the desk, and this is something you're obviously able to keep, to take away with you, to discuss with your companions.
Just to summarise, I've managed to sketch out some sort of ruin from the desk. Is that what you would call it, a ruin or some sort, or like a limerick?
That interpretation would be entirely up to you. What you see is a circular shape with this helix spiral radiating out from the center.
Okay, so I'll jump in as a character from that point when I open my eyes and I see what I have created. And I'm like,
yep.
Oh my god, wow, guys! I mean, I've just had a crazy hallucination, and I have created this almost by out of sheer blindness and whim. Does anybody recognise this pattern? And I show the guys.
It looks almost alchemical in a way.
Yes, you see the helix. It's very strange. It's almost like it tells us something. Maybe we should talk to Sylvie, and she might be able to help us on this one.
Well, what else is in this room first before we disappear? Is anyone else of you got any idea of what this circular helix that our friend here has found?
Well, maybe there might be some more around the room. Maybe if you guys, have a closer look at stuff, you might find some more stuff, some more clues.
So if anyone wants to, you can give me an observation check, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's a D6. A 4 for me.
A 4 for you there, Jay. Excellent. So, Jay, as you're looking around the room, you notice that the head of the bed is not quite flush with the wall. And going over there, you find a kind of leather satchel, evidently well used and well travelled with, and you find this stuffed down the back of the bed. Drawing it out as you pick it up, a journal falls out of the bed, the bag onto the bed.
Well, not the first time I've seen leather and beds put together, but let's see what's in the journal. I always do love logs of travel.
So, opening the journal up, you see what you would describe, especially as an archivist, what you would describe as a clumsy hand. This is notes, scratched notes. Someone might uncharitably describe this handwriting as like a drunk spider with ink on its feet. But you are able to make out odd words here and there. You see a note that reads "The Old Man and the Woods." You see a note that refers to slime, and you see a note that refers to a moving forest.
Okay. Well, I think that gives us some idea of what he must have been looking for. I'm slime, moving plants, and an old man of the woods. I reckon that perhaps Sylvie and Bastion at least might be able to answer for the old man of the woods part.
Oh, is that not Philippe?
Oh,
Not what was his name?
the elder.
what's Philippe? Philippe Senior, I believe. Perhaps. That seems... I don't think he, lives in the woods, though. Maybe.
He's the oldest man around here, and he knows much about the woods.
Very well, then.
What about the slime, though? That's an unusual one.
If we could just get a sample of it, it would probably tell us quite a bit, but we'd have to find some first, obviously.
Good sir. Cardinal, what was your character's name again?
Lavesh?
Lavesh, a moment if you will. That circle, I wonder if that has anything to do with this slime. Is it some sort of DNA pattern, perhaps?
It is a strange helix. It could be somehow related. I mean, is there any symbols that match this in that diary you found?
I'll have a look, certainly, but I don't think so.
In this instance, there is no matching pattern.
Huh. Then there are no answers then. So, I mean, should we have maybe one final look of the room? Is there anything else we can find? You know, there's a desk and a bed. Is there any other, I don't know, squeaky floorboards?
This is a sparsely furnished room, and Matt and Jay's search, as well as your work over on the desk, Sam, have revealed all of its secrets.
Can I see if there's any muddy footprints?
Any muddy footprints? Are you trying to use your footprints in the mud, your tracks in the mud skill here?
So if he's been here and left muddy footprints, you might be able to follow for where he's gone next.
In this instance, the room looks surprisingly clean. It looks like Bastion's helpers have been in to clean the rooms every few days, as you would hope from a respectable establishment. So there are no tracks in the room that are visible to you at the moment.
Oh, there's no prints I can follow. I'm no use. I don't know what I've got to finish.
Don't worry, you're not in your natural environment yet as a guardian flower. You'll get there soon enough.
That's fine.
So the party, it sounds like, have agreed to go back downstairs and engage with Bastion and Sylvie again. Is that correct?
Yeah. Let's go talk to them again.
All right, so making your way back down the stairs, you notice that Sylvie... Bastion is kind of milling around with a little bit of nervous energy and is kind of tugging on his beard in a little bit of a nervous and stressful way, which would probably account for why it's looking quite frayed given the current situation. But Sylvie is kind of locked in a contemplative conversation with Philippe the Elder. Philippe the Younger, by the look of things, has gone back over to his table and is kind of carousing a little bit with his friends. But as you get over, you hear Sylvie expressing her concern for Anais and Elodie. But as you sit down, she greets you and says, "So, did you find anything in the room? Anything that might lead you to find out where he's gone and where he's gotten off to?" And you can sense the contempt in her voice. She is concerned for what Pierre might be doing rather than for Pierre himself.
My character steps forward and goes, "Yes, Sylvie, we have found a few interesting markers that we could maybe slowly figure out where this man has gone. By chance, do you recognise this symbol?" And I'm going to show her the scribbling I made.
So she takes it in her hand and she looks at it, and you see her kind of close her eyes and really kind of dwell on what's there. And she says, as she opens them, she says, this symbol is unknown to me, but she says she can... She says, and she looks to you, Sam, as the diviner, as someone who will perhaps understand what she's about to say on a deeper level than anyone else would. But she's like, I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. Fate is it's almost like fate is trying to talk to me through it.
Yes,
she
Sylvie,
says,
I feel the unbinding energy as well that resonates in this image.
Sylvie then gestures. She turns around to Flower and says, "Flower, you, by the look of your armor, you're this party's guardian. Am I right in that?"
Oh yes, I keep my eye on these renegades.
Renegade.
She kind of chuckles a bit as she says, as you say that, and she says, "At the institute, you know, you're the guardians, you're the creature specialists in a way. You and the archivist, you're the creature specialists." And she turns to Jay and she invites Jay conspiratorially into the conversation and says, "Did this not come up? Or was there no record of any monsters that bore this shape, bore this kind of marking at all in any of your training?"
Well, my specialty was urology, so I don't exactly know how relevant it's going to be. Much better for helping track down monsters and no dietary patterns than
Yeah, it was all about the scent, wasn't it?
Or the taste. The technical skills.
Maybe they're leavings.
Oh, sorry.
So Sylvie then kind of goes back to contemplation. As she says, she kind of quiets her mind once again, and she says, when she opens her eyes, she says, "I think that this is the target that you're looking for." She says, "I can't say what it is, but I have no doubt that this is this pattern will be on the target that you were looking for."
I do have a few ideas of what it could be. Potentially a particular patterning to a vine of a monster that resembles plants. I do think, though, I know you're quite concerned about this hunter, that if we simply track down the creature, the hunter won't be far.
So Sylvie nods vigorously, and she says that she thinks you're entirely right, and she hopes as well. She says when you're out, she asks kind of plaintively that when you are out in the woods, please try and look for Anais and Elodie, any trace. She says they might not have gone into the woods, but it seems too coincidental that they were seen on the borders of the woods over the last few weeks, and for them to have gone missing at the same time. And then, as if the thought has just caught her, she shouts, "Bastian, Anais's hut. They can go and check there. They can go and see if they can find anything. Do you still have the keys?" And Bastian comes kind of roaring over and says, "Of course, absolutely. Anything we can do to try and find them, we must do." And he looks at you and says, "I know you've come all this way to see if to investigate the rumors of these rumors of a monster. But if there's anything you can do to help our locals, finding them would bring us all great joy."
Before we go anywhere, Philip, because
Yes.
do you know anything? No, wrong Philip, the old man Philip.
Oh, that's Philippe. I'm Philip.
Philippe, you all sound the same to my ears. I do apologise. Slime, have you come across any in the woods at all?
Slime, he says. No slime. He bogs, he says. Absolutely bogs. He said there's fierce, terrible wetlands in the woods beyond the lake. Make sure to be careful of those wetlands. But he said they can get a bit slimy and grimy at times, but no slime.
I wonder then why this Pierre fellow was writing about slime.
Well, he was a beast hunter. Maybe slime attracts the beast.
Or maybe he's using Anise and Elodie as bait.
Well,
Questions upon questions.
I suppose if we go to Nisa's hut and find any signs of a struggle or any sign that she was dragged out into the woods against her want, that would indicate it.
Yes, I think our next best bet is to go to Anise's place. Although, perhaps we should talk to Elodie's father, or parents, or mother, or
I'd rather
whoever's there.
act more quickly than not.
I mean, our next place would be to go to the woods. Maybe we could start tracking, our dear guardian friend here is a very good tracker. We could probably follow some footsteps and track him down.
Lavesh, did you not just hear? We have 2 other places to check, potentially.
Yeah.
Before.
I don't think that her father's going to know much about the monster. And
No, not about the monster, but where she was last. What was she doing with this
She was taken by the old woman. That's what I was told.
Yes, but maybe we should find out why. Was she learning or was she... I don't know.
So at this point, Sylvie, seeing your indecision, Sylvie kind of intervenes a bit and says that Guillaume, she says, Guillaume is she kind of catches herself a little bit, a good man at heart, but is not normally one for outsiders, and is a man worried about his daughter. She says, no doubt he will open his doors to you, but I wouldn't expect a particularly warm welcome, or even maybe a useful welcome. But certainly Anace's hut is on the way, on the edge of the village, by the Azura Woods. Elodie has been spending an awful lot of time there recently. But either our concern is, and you see her. You get the sense that she's voicing one concern while trying to kind of communicate another one. She says, our concern is obviously for their safe return. But you do get the sense that she's maybe holding back something.
My dear, it's not good if you hold back information. Something that might be useful.
Matt, give me a deduction check, please.
A deduction, a D6.
Elementary, my dear Matt.
That would be a 3.
A 3. Okay, so not quite a success, but also not a terrible failure. You get the sense from Sylvie that she's so relieved that you're finally here after the time that it took for the letter to reach the Institute, for the time it took for the Institute to dispatch you. She's so grateful that you're here, and she's almost becoming fixated on the idea that Pierre means harm. You've understood from her anyway that she despises this man and everything he stands for, and that she is primarily concerned that he means to do harm to whatever he thinks is out there, and will do harm to anyone who gets in his way.
You believe them to be dead, then?
So when you say that, she kind of tears up a little bit, and she's like, all death is part of fate's plan. If any of them are dead, then it was their time. It was their thread has come to an end in fate's tapestry. But just because that might be the case, and just because fate has planned everything out, doesn't mean that we can't show concern and try to intervene where we can.
Right, so I suppose next his job is Anice's wood hut, then.
On where we go?
Yes.
And by the way, Sylvia, if we do find that Hunter's done anything unsavoury, I'm sure the Force would mind a little bit more compost. That was excellent work.
That was incredibly dark. Give yourself a fate point. I love it. Okay, so Bastian and Sylvie stand up, and Bastian is doing his now familiar vigorous shaking of everyone's hand. He thanks you, and he says, as you're leaving the door, he says, "Oh, the fog! Don't forget about the fog." He says, we left for years. We've been leaving markers in the woods to help guide your way. Just look out for the ribbons, he says.
The traditional ribbons in the wilderness. I like them ones.
Has anyone told you, Philip, you're a little bit creepy?
What? It's a good marker.
Normal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, as you gather your equipment back up, you leave some of your equipment behind. Some of your kind of like reporting equipment you will leave here in the inn, but you prepare yourself for the things that you will need for what promises to be no doubt a somewhat arduous journey through a fog-soaked forest. So Sylvie kind of leaves with you. She walks with you in the rain to the eastern edge of the village, and she points across some kind of boggy, water-soaked ground. And she says, that tree, the old oak tree that stands out there on its own on the edge of the bog, that's where Anace's cottage is. She hands you over the key that Bastian had given to her. And she said, she kind of, as you're walking away, Jay, she grabs your hand kind of as you're turning to leave, and kind of pulls you back in, and she says, please, anything you can do to protect the forest and whoever is in it, please swear to me you will do.
Of course I will protect whatever we find in the forest.
Even she says, and she kind of puts a sardonic smile on, even that monster Pierre.
Not at the cost of anything else, but if there's no reason not to, of course I'll help him out.
So she gives you a bit of a knowing nod there, and then sends you on your way. So as you begin to walk over the bog towards the edge of the forest, the village was relatively quiet, but it has the sound, of vague civilization nonetheless. But even as you move only a few steps into the bog, it's almost as if the sound around you starts to deaden and dull as you move closer to Anace's hut, and you begin to see the borders of the Azure wood beyond the hut. Even it seems the birds, the few birds that were braving the rain that you heard on the outskirts of the village as you entered seem to have fallen quiet. And a few hundred meters from the edge of the village, you reach Anace's hut. And even calling it a hut is perhaps overselling it. This would be described perhaps as a hovel. It's a kind of lean-to lent up against the tree. It doesn't appear to have been maintained very well. But as you put the key into the lock, you turn the key, the lock clicks open, and the door swings open. The interior, you see, is divided into a joint common room and kitchen, a small sleeping quarters, and a toilet space hanging off attached to the edge of the building. As you enter, the smell of dust and rotten herbs hanging from the low ceiling permeate the cottage, and a table in the common room immediately draws the eye. The table is laden with parchment, all covered with notes in an odd-looking language.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to repeat what I did last time round. I'm going to go to the table, and I'm going to ask if I recognise the language written on the scrolls.
You do. This language you recognise to be Div, which is an old tongue once used by diviners. And
very convenient.
Just remind me, Sam, you do have the Div skill, don't you?
I do. I was just going to say, I do conveniently read Div.
What a coincidence.
So Div, just for context, Div is a kind of, it's almost like an old underground language for those people who are kind of familiar with languages like Polari and kind of market languages. It's that kind of thing. There's words from common tongues are added in there, but they're often grammatically changed and put into different contexts. There's also some clicks and whistles that are written down as kind of X's and upside down exclamation marks. And Sam, your character is able to read this language.
Brilliant. So, first things first, I just want to double check. I can't remember the person we were supposed to meet in here, but are they in this room?
Anace. No, there is no one else in here.
So, yeah, the first thing I've done is walked up to the desk, discovered that, I can read this language. Strange, it's quite an obscure language, and I'm assuming it's not the common tongue of the area. Am I right?
It's definitely not the common tongue. It's not even all diviners can speak it.
So it's okay. So you say it's a rare language. Very, very, very strange to find in a random hut in the edge of this village. So yes, I'm going to admire and look into these writings some more. And if you could please tell me what they say, it'd be lovely.
I can, yeah. So on the parchment, this is a mix of a kind of journal and also kind of almost like academic field notes. Anace, some of the entries are more innocuous than others. One is Anace's plan to grow her garden and to plant some of Elodie. She mentions Elodie by name, and to grow some of Elodie's favourite plants and flowers and revitalise her garden. And she describes Elodie, quote, as a most willing student in the divining arts. As you pour through the pages, there's a big kind of leaf of pages on the table, and as you pour through them, a notable entry concerns the rain, the increase of the rain. And Enace describes this in an odd term. She says that the rain is being caused by something called the effluvia of fate. Now, this is a phrase you have never heard before. This is the effluvia is an odd enough word as it is, but the effluvia of fate is not something you've ever heard of before.
Could you spell that?
Effluvia is EFFLUVIA. Now she doesn't. In the notes don't describe what the effluvia is, but she is insistent in these notes that what she calls the root and branch monster, its arrival is a direct result of the effluvia's movements, and you see these kind of images of huge clouds, and preceding them a kind of bank of fog, and within them a hill with an odd pattern on it, covered in trees on top.
Okay, so this is almost like a living sort of island, like a living little beast island. Trying to explain it. Because you're talking like a whole ecosystem here, aren't you?
That's certainly, I mean, it's an ecosystem. It would be hard to determine an ecosystem from just the drawing, but certainly it looks like a representation of a living forest.
Okay.
On what appears to be a mound with an odd pattern on it.
So can Kathy lean over Carmen's shoulder for a moment and check if that odd pattern matches the helix pattern?
Absolutely, you can.
Idea.
Roll me an observation check.
I can't read this,
please.
but I can check a pattern.
Roll me an observation check.
It'll be a D6. Oh, 2. Never mind.
2. You get the sense that there are similarities between them, like that there's the same general shape, but it looks like Enace's drawings, the patterns on Enace's drawings don't quite seem to sync up. At least in your mind, they don't seem to sync up with the kind of rubbing drawing that Sam's character did earlier on.
I've just had an idea. Hold on one moment.
Go on, Sir Derek. What is your outstanding idea?
What if it's not so much the forest is moving as it is this creature that is represented in these doodles that you've clearly had time to explain to the rest of us that can't read Div.
Yes, I mean, I've been describing this fantastic thing out loud.
He reads out loud.
Thank you. Read out loud.
What if
yes.
this
Sounds
fog or this gas has some sort of hallucinatory proposition to it?
That's a good idea there, Derek. I don't see much on the scribbling here to say of such, but we can assume so. There could be some toxic gases amongst the this ecosystem we are seeing, this living forest.
Well, the determination of
perhaps it could be
effluvia.
toxic slime.
We've wanted the slime.
Come into contact with it in its hallucinations. We are getting very off of evidence.
Well, perhaps this effluvia, the definition is it's unpleasant or a harmful odour or a discharge of some sort. So yes, perhaps
It could
you're
be
correct.
discharge. I wonder if the monster has a UTI. It's possible.
I think it could be more likely snotty.
Feels like the pieces are slipping together.
There's only one thing I like.
Slipping together, that is foul. Flower I hate that.
That took me a second, yeah. There's one last thing I like to do
Disgusting.
with these drawings, and actually just drawing on what my colleague Kathy did. I would like to compare my drawing I took earlier to these notes and see what I can see if I get any anything stands out.
Give me a deduction check, please.
Cool. Deduction of 6, and I'm going to roll a 6 and go 4.
So you get the sense that the pattern that Anais has drawn is more similar than Kathy might otherwise have suspected. Kathy seems to have approached it and almost dismissed it out of hand. Kind of had a quick look, and in a very unarchivist way has been like, no, that doesn't look the same. But as you kind of compare the two drawings, you do get the sense that they are similar things. It appears to you that whatever Anais is writing about and has evidently been concerned with for some time is also the thing that Pierre is here to track down.
Okay, so let's just I just want to connect a few dots here, just background thinking. So we've got this living ecosystem. We've got this sketch that I found on the desk. We believe it's a sketch of a some sort of mythical beast, give or take, that could be lurking in these woods. Am I sort of, roundabouting it all quite nicely?
I mean, this is what you've said. This is what I understand from your play so far. Yeah.
Yep. No. Okay. Just getting a bit of an idea of what we're sort of walking into, and from what we're getting here as well, we there could be a snotty encounter coming up.
Or potentially some hallucinogenic gases, good sir.
It's not slime, it's mucus.
Right. All right.
So would anyone else like to do anything while you're here in Anais's hut?
Being resourceful, I would like to have a look around if there's anything we could use potentially to help us have a look around, work things out in the forest, maybe to... What's the best way? Just basically, if there's anything we could use potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're using your resourceful skill here to do this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as you're kind of rooting around in Anais's cottage, it becomes clearer to you that this is a woman. I mean, if you couldn't tell by the fact that she lives in a hovel, this is a woman that lives is of simple means. There isn't really much about here. Her proximity on the edge of the village suggests a kind of distance, and what places where food would normally have been stored appear to have been emptied out. Now, it doesn't look like there's been any kind of struggle. The door was locked, which suggests it was locked after her when she left. But Matt, do give me an exploration check, please.
Okay, that is a D4. Oh, bugger, that's a 1.
That's a 1, okay. So,
and you explore into the door.
I find the toilet.
Yeah.
What you do during your explorations, you see some...
Sorry.
We're all 5-year-olds.
I've learned. You see some herbs hanging from the centre of the room that look like they've been hanging over where a fire might have been kept and they've been dried out. And these look like these might be of some use to you. But as you pick them up, you realise them to be rotten. Like they appear to be dry on the outside, but they're rotten, and you get kind of rotten herbs all over your hands.
Unpleasant.
Can I use my...
Smell time out.
That's the time.
Time out.
Can I use my keen eye to see if there's any plants or any... Basically, in my mind, it's like any plants that are only growing one part of the... I think.
Any that might grow next to a swamp would be interesting, because this is
Yeah.
a swampy part.
So you want to use keen eyes to have a look around and see if there's anything that might be, of use, or...
Yeah, that's like... I
What
don't...
do your elven eyes see?
You're
this
taking
sort
the
of...
monster to Isengard.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, do you see
This
anything
sort of
unusual?
leaf is only like this certain area of the swamp, or if it's this only grows in the city or something like that.
Got ya. Okay. So Flower, as you step outside, you step outside and kind of cast your eye around the bog through as much as you can through the fog. And this is where guardians feel at their most, outside. Even in small villages, most guardians often feel quite confined. And so as you step out to get some fresh air and to kind of scan the horizon, you feel more comfortable with your place in this mission, and you know that the forest awaits you, and whatever's in there is where the Guardian really comes into their own. And you notice that the weather appears to be... The fog appears to be rolling out of the forest rather than kind of... it's almost being propelled forward. And there's not really much of a wind going on. And the wind is not blowing in the direction that the fog is. And as you go back in to inform your party members of this, you see a small note that appears to have been discarded by the door. And on that note, in a hand that is not the same as that you've seen on the notes that Sam was reading, you see the words "meet in the clearing," and that's all the note says.
Aha. I found a note. It says, meet in the clearing. It's either someone's having a sandwich in the outside, or there's something afoot.
I just want to bring something up here for a moment.
Yes.
The herbs here have gone rotten. But they have said she's only been gone for 4 days.
I wonder if she was losing her mind slightly. I don't know much about divination, but I assume if she's been having constant visions.
Or has she left before 4 days?
Who can tell? Although, that does remind me of something.
She was replaced.
Can I... She's had these visions of, like, a dark fog of fate going wrong. Could I use... Because divination folks seem like they might be the folk witches or the lore keepers of this world.
Yeah.
Could I use folk tradition to find out if there's been similar stories that have been found out to be certain types of monster?
She's folk loose.
She's folk insane.
You're using Jay, you're invoking your folklore skill here.
Because I know there's a traditional story about a similar thing that turned out to be this or that type of monster.
And you're asking this in relation to the fog particularly?
Yeah, the fog, the fate going absolutely bonkers.
Got you.
Anything.
Okay, so you're well versed in Barbesian folklore. Barbesia is, after all, your home region. It's where you've trained. It's you're kind of familiar with the general folk tales from this region. And while you can't remember any tale that concerned fog in particular, suddenly you link the journal, the phrase you read in the journal with a folktale you do remember. And it's almost as if lightning has struck your brain, and the phrase "the old man and the forest" comes back to you, and you're like, it can't be, surely it can't be. And the story that you remember, and that is told in this region of Barbesia, is that one day an old man went out into the forest on a beautiful summer's day, and after walking a number of miles, was tired. The heat of the sun was baking down on him, and so he decided to have a sleep in the crook of a tree in the shade. And this was a part of the forest that he knew well. And he falls asleep and sleeps for a few hours. And when he wakes up, he is miles away, under the same tree still, but miles away from where he fell asleep. And it took him twice as long to get out of the forest than it did for him to get into the forest. And that this is a folk story you remember from this region.
I wonder if we aren't just dealing with not poisonous gas, not hallucinogenics, but simply an incredibly large monster with an environment on its back. Sort of like the Pokemon Torterra, if you will.
What the hell is a Pokemon?
A world turtle. Isn't that what it's based on?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Lion
But I
turtles,
was thinking
turtles.
the lion beast from Avatar.
Yeah.
The lion turtle.
I
Dragon
wonder if it
turtle.
isn't simply very large and is sort of accidentally causing people to rot away.
A humble beast that is merely just going about its business.
Yes. It does move the scale of what we're dealing with up quite a bit there.
Well, that would make sense as to why the journal in Pierre's room also mentioned Old Man in the Woods. Possibly the same story.
Huh.
And a moving forest, it mentioned that too. The journal in his room. I wonder if that hasn't just been a sighting. At least if it's big, it should be relatively easy to find.
Well then, I think we know where we need to go next.
with the story of the old man and the forest in mind, and the connections that you as a party have now started to draw, the only thing that seems sensible and relevant to do is to begin your journey into the wilds of the Azura Woods. So stepping out and gathering on the edge of this vast, vast wood stretching far beyond sight to the east, the party steels themselves and prepares to take the first step out of the semi-wilds into the wilds of Barbecia.